Welcome to The Leaders Who Care, a podcast powered by Dynamis Group. We are here to give the stage and support to those committed to create a positive and lasting impact, way beyond the profits and margins, the leaders of the world who care for others and serve a bigger purpose. Join us on the journey of creating a better, more caring world. And now to your host, Marian Tamalkov.
Hello, everyone. I'm thrilled today to have an extraordinary guest. As you guys know, we're on a mission to discover and give stage to some of the most caring leaders from every corner of the world. Today, we have a very special one, a leader who actually has spent a lot of We just have disappeared.
Right, so it seems like we have a little...
Out.
Oh,
Hi.
Okay. Well, welcome back. So, shall we do a shot two?
For some reason, I was chucked out while the video was running.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, it's one. In fact, will be a perfect moment to start exactly on time. that was a sign.
Fantastic. I'm sorry about that.
That was a sign. No, not at all. Well, it's great. As I was saying, we're on a journey, on a mission to discover and bring, give stage to some of the most caring leaders from every corner of the world. And today we have a great, really, opportunity to welcome you. I welcome a very special leader who's actually spent and dedicated a significant part of his life of creating and serving the world. And this episode will be dedicated to the creatives. And I'm really excited to welcome Jamshid Alamuti, the CEO and founder of NeuroJam and House of Creative Entrepreneurship. Jamshid, welcome. And
thank you.
Where are you joining us today from?
I'm sitting in Berlin.
I know that you have roots from Iran, which is, I think you're the first one, to have this roots and
my pleasure.
Be based in Germany and really made it
Awesome.
Really global citizen.
Awesome.
Well, first of all, would like to hear a little bit more about what do you do? What is your role today? And of course, we'll go back and just covering some of your milestones of your journey. But why don't you share just a brief introduction of what is your mission today?
Sure. So when you say mission, I would say I'm dedicated to education. I've been running my own companies, co-founding and founding organizations, all based on education for the past 10 years or so. And at the time before, I was helping others to fulfill their missions. But more or less, you can say education is all I'm focusing on and all I'm good at from, well, if you could say I'm good at, I don't know, the others must say. But so, yeah, this is where my time is fully invested in. I'm right now the CEO and founder of two companies. One is a company builder, the House of Creative Entrepreneurship, where I'm trying to give room and provide support to any talent who wants to make their ideas and dreams to become reality. So as far as I can, I'm going to be supporting them. And at the same time, I put my own first like full-on digital hub as a startup under that, which is Neural Jam, which is a club for lifelong learners and space for exchange of knowledge for the good. And this is what Momentum is taking my full time.
Amazing. Well, look, you share also my personal passion, which is really to help young people and through really the most innovative way of learning and developing themselves. And so I would love to trash out this topic with you about education and talk about really what are the most innovative or most disruptive ways of learning. What is there? There's many questions, but just to talk, when you talk about education, it's such a vast topic. Which part? What do you actually mean, and where is your kind of really area of expertise?
So, good question. Expertise is a word which is not really close to me. I had difficulties right from the beginning, as I was a teenager, to put focus on one thing. But I was good at so many different things. So I, from very early stage, started to rather try to be the second best than the first, even though I had the talent to be the first. I thought there is no real reason for me personally to fight for being the first one. But I thought it would be great if I can be the one who is giving the number one a hard time to be the number one. So challenging them to win against me or with me was actually what was making me happy. So I end up looking into so many different areas. And as I went into the, say, adult education, as I started to work for Volkswagen, from the topic perspective, the areas I started to focus on were transformation, leadership, communication. But I was also focusing on designing programs on project management, sales. And so there was a time where I realized it's actually not about the topic itself, because you will have so many experts out there and so many source of content where it's easy actually to find the top of the pop, the best of the best in terms of content. But what counts is much more the how and not the what. And that's where I started to focus on. So if we would speak of an expertise or a unique approach, is that I started to focus on how do I make sure that the knowledge transfer is resulting at the highest possible. And people can get the most out of that time they invest to interact with the subject matter, and consciously ask themselves the question, what do I do with this knowledge? So what? I learned something, but what do I do with it? I thought if the experts say after a program, you come back home and only 12 to 18% of the learning remains with you, how do I make sure that this percentage rises? And how do I make sure that you can do something with it? And that was what I started to focus on. And I think the program design is what I started to become really, really good at.
Great. Well, absolutely. I think there's so many ways where the traditional education is going back to the roots, was designed for different purpose. Some say to produce factory workers. So it's difficult to generalize and put everybody in under the stamp.
Absolutely.
Which is the opportunity, I'd say. I think it's the greatest opportunity to tailor individual approach to each child or each student. It's a challenge to do, but it's with the technology advancement, I think it's one of the greatest opportunities that in our lifetime. Someone said to me a long time ago, you can't make money out of education. That's not sustainable, blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, first of all, my personal belief is when you go into education, it's not necessarily to go and make money. You actually go for a conviction and really serve.
True.
But I also am convinced that your value will determine and the money a byproduct of your service and your value creation.
Absolutely
That
agree.
can be reinvested and do a lot of that. If we just talk about the current way of, do you focus on specific age group, Jam, or were you?
So my dream would be go back and be at the very starting point of the whole journey. So starting to work with the kids, especially because they are pure, they are not affected by this society, they are not polluted, so to speak, and they are open. They ask the questions. They are stubborn asking the questions. They ask 5 times why. You can. So it's fun to work with kids, but obviously the infrastructure within the countries and nations is pretty harsh in terms of government regulations, etc., etc. So the niche I started to work with starts right after high school diploma and goes to 55, 60 years old. Anyone who has finished and wants to enter the real world, and anyone else who is still in there and trying to find themselves. A friend of mine used to say, I'm actually not choosing the target group. The target group is choosing me. It's people who are at the edge of taking decisions in their lives in terms of what's next, where do I go, and for some reason those people find me the right catalyst, if you would say so.
Fantastic.
And
And just to, because this is so important, I feel like if we talk about young people, and I also noted what you mentioned, it would be fantastic to start at the beginning when they're unpolluted. Do you mean from what age? Because it can start from 2, 3, 4, 5 years old.
You're right. I mean, I agree with you, because if I look at what drives us as human being, our drivers, our engine, our fuel, is basically that cocktail is already made up at a super early age, starting from anything between 3 to 7. So that's where we are shaped, whether it's the family, the society around us, the community we are in. So if you really want to have a conscious impact in a constructive way on a person, on a child, the age should be really starting from the very first moment. Like every movement counts, every action of parents count. So the age where children start generating, like creating their own consciousness and creating a personality they stand behind, that of course differs from child to child, but it's already after that subconscious formation already. So I've been working a lot with kids 8 upwards, and I consider them as adults. If you deal with them as adults, they have own personalities. But as I was younger, I was also trying to earn money as Kindermädchen, as German people say. So doing some children care and like babysitting. But I was doing that just for the sake of learning from the children, rather than just taking care of them and giving them some crisps to eat. And that is the time where I realized that differentiated formation between someone who is anything between 2 and 6 and someone above, and 2 different worlds in my eyes.
Absolutely. I completely agree, because there's also scientific research done that the formation of the brain up to 7 years old is actually super, neuroplasticity is super high. You could pretty much make things very easy, and they remember everything. They copy everything very
Absolutely.
quickly, good or bad.
True.
So my advice to parents, and then we also had to learn some of those lessons ourselves, is make sure between that age, since you're not only prepared to have the baby, but be prepared As they say, the first 7 years are very critical. Be ready and be a living example. And if you're in a situation where it brings you a lot of stress, get out of it and make sure that you prepare, because this is going to serve you well for many years and will bring you longevity of life for the rest of your life. Because if you get this right with your children, you will be enjoying life later on, because they will follow this example. Of course, then after that, from age of eight to, I think, teenage age, 14, 15, is you can improve things. There is still the neuroplasticity of the brain is still there, but it's much more, it takes a lot more efforts,
Absolutely.
And I think after that is, from teenage to 20, it's finalization of the character.
Well, I don't know. Some people never grow. I didn't. I'm still 20. I mean, I wish. But
some people stop. Yeah.
True.
No, I agree. But what I say, after 20 is a lot of suffering to change. So what I was saying, I'm saying it could be a lot of joy. But what I was saying is, if you really, these are the opportunities. I think that the younger, the easier it can be if you're a good example. The older you get, it's possible. Anything. I'm convinced, and I've seen it. You can change in any stage of your life. It's just depending on what age you are. It takes a lot more effort the older you get, and you need to have all strong levers, to be able to do that.
True. I think, I don't know. I didn't want to go into that, but I think this is, obviously we are differing between the physical conditions and mental conditions. So no doubt, my knees aren't the same anymore. And I can't run as I used to. And I don't do all those crazy stuff as I was doing as I was younger. But somehow, if I would look back, everything which helps me to be the professional person who I am, and everything what helps me to be the entrepreneur what I am, is actually coming purely from that root of still having the child living in me in full function. Maybe the real 20 years old of myself was doing the same things without even thinking about it. And the 55 years old of today does that and knows exactly what's happening around. So that has changed. But those characteristics which made me be those, just going through life teenager guy, is the same push which makes me going through the life as the entrepreneur who's willing to take bigger risks. Things what have changed is with 20, maybe I didn't have the cash I needed to do stuff I'm doing now, or I didn't have the network, or that type of things have changed. But these are less, these are the conditions around it.
Oh, fantastic.
The core remained, So.
You said I also heard other people saying that have the child living in me in full representation. What do you actually mean? How does it feel? Just describing that state of when because that seems for you is the state of creativity, which is one of your really key differentiators and areas, and then we can obviously talk about that creative state. How do you achieve it for others?
So difficult for me to explain it. I try to see how I can form that. Like so at least myself, as a teenager, like with 20s, when you just get up and there is no tomorrow, you decide, let's just jump on a train or hitchhike and go to another city for 3 weeks. And if the 3 weeks becomes 5, you don't care. You just live the life. You fall in love with activities, and that energy you get from it, that passion you create for, the love of something really even shallow at the surface, playing a game, or falling in love with a person, or falling in love with a sport you start doing. Like, tiny little things which aren't maybe so deep in terms of meaning, is just like fun or excitement or experience of life, but it consumes your entire you. You dedicate yourself. You do as if this is it. It's similar to if you are a teenager and fall in love and you think, this is the love of my life, if she goes, I die, or this is the sport I will do until I die, like kind of you create some over exaggerated passion for something. Because you're young, you haven't seen enough. You don't really realize there will be more. There will be a next time, a next thing. But for you is now, and you put all the energy behind it. And I think this is something, for example, I carried with me back to up to now. And it has like characteristics coming with it. You don't believe probably, but I still don't have a saving account. I actually opened a saving account for my children as they were born. But I don't have myself any, and I didn't have before, because life was about, I don't know what happens tomorrow. So I'm not going to save for tomorrow. Maybe there is none. And that idealistic dream type of thing. But that makes me now risk and invest in a company, for example, and not thinking about, so what can happen with it? Let's just go for it. So I don't think much, It's a lot gut driven. It's a lot emotion driven. And I don't know if this emotion issue is something separate from being a child or a teenager, but I do believe that our cortex start like taking over our limbic and emotions at some later stage. There is a long period of time at that early stage where we are intuitive, where we are instinctive. And I think that instinct is the one which did not die. But also the other issue, which is important for me from the perspective of a child, is that concept of, as a child, as long as you're not hurt, you see life in a positive way. You always see the positive in everything. And that enables you to open up. And I think that's also something I took with myself, which allows me nowadays in the professional time of my life, in leadership role or whatever constellation work-wise, I still can forgive quickly. And this forgiving is an amazing tool you have to jump over so many complexities. If you can let go of stuff, if you can forgive people, if you can still give without expecting something in return. So there are those type of elements which
no, it's
maybe
fantastic.
I'm just throwing them out randomly, but this is like literally the bits and bytes which I think is there at some stage in your life by default, and we lose them along the way.
Yeah.
And you either then work hard to regain them, or you manage to stick to them. And
I love what you said. The action, take a trial, because the children will try out things. And they don't want to think too much about certain things. You have that gut instinct. Of course, we have more experience. Trying things, take action. I think it's being proven many times how important. You can think many things, but if you don't take action, and even if it's the wrong one, you will quickly figure out if it's the wrong one, and you can take another action. It's a different approach. Some people have a different strategy. They want to learn everything on the topic, etc. But that taking an action, it's fundamental. The natural optimism, and I kept that with me, and I'm grateful to God for really blessing me to have this in my life and the way they come across, because I think life is easier when you naturally optimist and positive. It's more pleasant. And you know what? It becomes that way because you believe in it. It's just interesting, but you attract that as well in your life.
Definitely agreed.
I love what you just said, and really having this kind of reaction and the forgiveness, what you said, is fantastic. I think we should all learn from children to forget quickly, to forgive quickly, and not hold back, because that helps you
Absolutely.
personally, the person that forgives. more and everyone else. And I think these are fantastic traits of what does it mean to keep the child in you. And thank you for highlighting some of them, from your perspective. And in that course, and we're talking about now creativity, Jam. What are the really? How do you reach a creative state? Because I believe everybody can be creative.
Agreed.
And what are the conditions from your experience? What you have seen? What works? What others? Because we've seen, especially in the corporate world or today's world, there's a lot of stress and anxiety in people. And I personally believe that kills creativity if there's a lot of stress. But some people might argue, well, not really, because during the Second World War there was a lot of stress and thing, but a lot of things were invented, like the nuclear bomb. Well, not for good reason, but what I'm thinking is, what are your take on this? And what are the conditions for having that creative state? And is it possible to thrive under pressure and very difficult circumstances?
Yeah, no, I see what you mean. Again, I think that's a very sophisticated question. There are many people who've been writing books on it, pages and pages, obviously. So my apologies up front if my knowledge on that is pretty limited and just like limited to my own subjective experience. But obviously, fundamentally, I'm differing between creativity as such and being an artist and using creativity as art. I also differ between those who channel creativity through a certain craft. Typically, for example, for advertising scene, where you have someone who probably is a creative person by default and decides, I want to become a copywriter. And then their creativity starts at some stage, limits itself to being a good writer. And if they have difficulties to express, to write, if they don't manage to write that one short, simple message, they feel desperate, as if their creativity is not being unleashed or is not coming out. Similar to a graphic designer, etc., etc. So as soon as people start narrowing their channel of creative output by focusing on a certain craft, they have already framed their own, say, inner creative. Whereas, as you rightly said, I also do believe everyone is and can be a creative person, and just need to look for what are the channels for me to make use of them, or where can I apply that. And mostly that application starts from a thinking process, from a simple thinking process, much more towards solving a problem rather than producing something just because you have an asset and you need to do something with it. It's not about that. So if you go back to caveman, everything they did, from defending themselves, coming down from the tree, go to the cave, having the fire going on, writing their stories, cheering each other up by sitting together and share stories. Every aspect of that is pure creative concept. The entire development of the human being, for me, is rooting into the creativity, because innovation feeds from creativity. So to me, true creativity starts with having a question in your head in terms of a challenge or a problem and wanting to solve it. Once you start challenging yourself to come up with a solution for a specific challenge, then you're unleashing your creativity already. That is how I look at that in general. So for me, it's not something tangible by a craft. Just because you're an architect, you're a designer, you are entitled to be a creative person. But as soon as you sit in front of a piece of paper and you ask yourselves, how can I cut a perfect circle? You start being a creative soul. So those architects and designers, they are for me experts. They are for me true artists. They are for me true, individuals using creativity as a language for a very specific output. So I differ between craft as a output channel for creativity, and creativity as such fundamentally by every human being as soon as they try to solve a problem or get engaged in a challenge.
Fantastic.
I hope I'm making sense.
No, absolutely. It's been very helpful listening to you and hearing your perspective. And Jam, in terms of looking at your journey and all the different major milestones, did care play a role in your success?
I think caring is what made me who I am in overall. So beside the fact that back from childhood, I feel extremely lucky and privileged to have had a mother who gave me endless amount of love. I think I was given this this understanding that doing something for others, caring about something which is happening around you, whether it's a little cat, your flowers, or people around you, that all gives you something back. So making others happy at some stage started to become my mission without me even knowing that this is it, so to speak. This is my purpose. As I mentioned to you before we started, I even had at my early 20s the difficulty of, I had a person that was dedicated a lot of energy towards, who came to me and said, so why are you so good to me? And I said, that's me. That's how it is happening. And she said, no, if people are good, they want something in return. What do you want in return? And that made me really, really sad, actually. And I got disappointed and I closed myself in. And for a long while, maybe like 6 months or a year, I started to reject giving to people because I thought, okay, you guys don't deserve it. And then I started to observe how sad I became, how unhappy I was, how life started to be so difficult just because I was no longer giving. And I had a mentor at that time, a Portuguese woman. She was 10 years older than me, and she was the one who started to make me understand for the first time that whole concept of giving without expecting anything in return, and that through that way of giving, you recharge your batteries, so you are given anyway. And from then on, it started to totally make sense. And when it comes to organizations or teams, it started to not to be any different. What is of use for me if I have someone around me who is not happy? As simple as that. And what can I do to make sure that that person receives love and is happy? And if that happiness is assured, then I have a great resource around me. I think that the challenge and trouble is that if while I think this much and this way, I could become too much for the person, of course, because maybe people want to be left alone and, just be my boss, keep distance. And so there are a lot of little details in that pattern. But generally speaking, the concept for me, the concept of caring or giving love to the society and environment and community around you, it's a no-brainer, is a must-do, so to speak. Nothing else would work. It's a mix of you love and care is for me just one component of a leader who is in a constant self transformation so that everything around him can transform together with him. That requires emotional intelligence, flexibility, keeping up the enthusiasm. Back to the child, you always have to keep up that energy because people around you need to feel that they can trust. There is no down. There is always like the sunshine.
Absolutely.
So these are what you bring along.
Fantastic. I really appreciate and sharing that example. Really, when there is when you start giving is also, and in fact, I think one of our mission as human beings is to care for each other. I mean, is anything above religion and anything else, is that unites us really. We all respond to is care. Whenever you're sincerely interested in someone else and take care of them, they respond to it. But also, someone said, when you take care of others, you also take greater care of you personally. And you gave a great example of how you felt, how life is more pleasant, more enjoyable. We have a great question here from one of the listeners that she I'll just put it on to Maria is actually asking, I see that a lot of people are afraid of making any mistakes, and I think forgiveness is needed, a great quality for a leader. So do you have any good practices on how to promote psychological safety in a new team to open space for creativity? What a fantastic question.
Absolutely. So a good practice to how to promote safety. I can only say how I deal with that, and I'm a little bit of a disruptor. So I'm actually not systemic. Lots of systemic friends of mine dislike how I approach.
Yeah,
I'm one of those who, if you are in danger of killing yourself, I'd rather take you up to the roof and sit with you at the very edge instead of saying go and take some tablets to calm down. So I'm provocative and disruptive. Therefore, I think I don't go for safety, and I have a reason for that. Safety to me just creates another barrier for you to unleash the maximum within yourself. So I rather go and say, how do I know where your limits are? If you start jumping from stairs, and then you jump from the first one, and then you go up, and the second one, as a child we did that, then you go to the third step and jump down. So you go step by step farther and jump the higher. Where do you stop? You actually stop when you jump and either do not manage to go the entire path and hurt yourself, and then okay, the last one was 10. On the 11th, I fucked up. I've kind of damaged my leg or knees or whatever. Then my limit is 10. But you can only know your limit is 10 after you do the 11. You cannot go to the 10, jump the 10, and decide, okay, that was my limit. I don't know if I can do 11, or I think I cannot do 11 because 10 was already like kind of super exciting. And that's where I stop. So I'm not going for safety. I'm going for full on. But as a trade-off, I take full responsibility for whatever happens next. So if I have a colleague, an employee, or in my team where I demand them to take all the risk they can to go as big as possible with the risk and danger of completely failing and failing big, I take full responsibility for it so that they don't feel, oh my God, the consequences of me failing would be a damage to my role, job. So that's maybe the safety I give them. I do believe as a leader, that's my obligation to enable people, and if I enable them, I need to make sure that I am taking care of that consequences to begin with, so that they can go as far as they can go.
Fantastic. Wow. So what a great, interesting way of doing things. But I, in a way, can relate a lot to this because you can see, well, people first of all, often they don't know themselves that well. And I think sometimes discovering what they can do, what their limits are, or not, it's a journey. So I see what you mean. You're saying, hey, how do you create? And I think this is how you create what Maria is saying, safety, by when difficult situation happens or the problem happens or they fail, it's very important. How do you react? Your first reaction is of essence. And if you
Exactly.
start shouting and screaming, then probably they will not do that again. But if you say,
100%.
so this is it. Safety is created by your reactions and promoting really the behaviors that you want to see in the organization. So, and if you say, look, I take full responsibility, I think we're in trouble, but what can I do to help you get out of this? What resources do you need from me? What can I do? So still allow them to go through that. Don't take over, but support them to overcome whatever they got into, and as you said, take full responsibility, because if you take full responsibility, they'll really appreciate it. So I think whenever somebody is doing exceptionally well, you don't take the credit. When they fail, you take the fail. That's what you are saying.
I go with that.
Fantastic. No, and that will create a great. I also feel like to get this really trust and get that creative environment and new team, I think you got to share a vulnerability. I think, Maria, that's another thing that may be useful for you to try out. And just I think that the team gets closer is through going through several challenging moments together, sharing vulnerability, and also be interested in everyone's in the team's well-being. How are they doing? What's going on in their lives? See what their vision is, maybe where they want to be in the next 5 years. I think that personalized approach and to having a personalized growth plan makes a big difference, to see where they want to be and support them. And of course, supporting them, they'll support the company growth. It's just simple as that. If you take care of them, that will make a difference.
I absolutely second that.
Any other things that you could suggest, Jam, regarding of how do you open space for creativity?
You mean in context of leadership or in general?
Well, just to elaborate further on Maria's question, any good practices of how to promote psychological safety we've addressed, which leads to, I think, more creative environment. Because if people feel afraid to take action, which depends very much on the first reaction of when there's a problem, not when there's and also it's very important when they succeed. How do you recognize that? If they feel not recognized, they might not be, motivated to create more.
Well, I think we are sidetracking from topic, but that's okay. When it comes down to creativity, obviously creatives always say every little thing needs to be celebrated, and I like that anyway. Success always needs to be celebrated, and that helps. The unleashing of creativity and that psychological safety usually comes with confronting with fear. Again, fear of failure and fear of not being good, not being great, not being perfect, so to speak. So this is for me twofold. On one hand, I would like to promote there is no such a thing as perfect. The perfect is always, I used to say, we all have 10 fingers and that's 100%. But if all of us have 10 fingers and 100%, that's average. We all have just 10 fingers. If one of us comes and say, I have 6 in my hand, then it's like something amazing, you know. So going beyond the 100% starts becoming interesting. 100% is just nothing, it's average. And therefore those demand of the creatives to want to become better and better and better and never end is something I understand. They are trying to go for that 11 fingers, and as long as they know, go beyond that limit, but don't feel there is an end to it, and know where to stop and how to stop, I think is the dilemma you work with when you have a creative bunch around you. But at the same time, for me, again, the only safety I can give to a creative so that they can unleash their energy is all about giving them a purpose for what they are putting that creativity towards, so that they can see fruits of their work, and at the same time just giving them, like, taking the fear away when it comes down to not feeling perfect or good enough. There is no such a thing, so to speak. The doing is important, and not the result. The result is coming inevitably anyway. Taking action is what counts. So that's how far I would go with commenting to what Maria said.
Wonderful. And Jeremy, looking at, since you're also very optimistic, what does the future look like for you? What is your vision for a more caring and positive world?
So I think in that terms, in a emotional dilemma, I truly believe the time of my generation has come to an end. I think we and the generation before me, consciously or subconsciously, did lots of damage to the planet and to the world around us, to the society. And there is this next generation coming up now, and I feel my duty is to hand over the key to them and say, this is the key to this house. Sorry, we fucked it up. Try to do it better. And it's yours now. And because it's theirs, I don't want to be the one who says, but I have the experience, so I tell you how to do it better. I'm actually going towards, let me be at your service if you need my help. And again, I'm sorry that I'm giving it to you under this condition. Do with it whatever you want. Do it better. If I can help, let me help. If you say, go out of my way, let me do it, I go out of your way and let you do it.
You know, so, one of the greatest, and just to quickly add on something here.
Sure.
And I really appreciate what you're saying and being open, because not many people would say that. And it's true. Really, it's great to see the millennials and Generation Z coming on board and really moving forward. And it's their time now to make a difference.
Absolutely.
But sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, please. It's their time. It's a fantastic opportunity.
Absolutely. I think it's more than their time. It's their right to take over. And I think as a leader or as a senior person, like when I say senior, I'm talking about professional maturity and not personal maturity. So it doesn't matter if you're 60, 70, 50, or 40, as long as you have a past behind you which makes you professionally mature. I understand that it's difficult for a lot of us to claim, but I know so much and I have experienced so much, so I must give and I must pass on. We should only do that if it is asked for. And it's not our responsibility, it's their responsibility. Is their planet. Is actually not even their planet. The planet, belongs to the Mother Earth. We are just guests on it. But so maybe that concept of servant leadership and conscious leadership is the best I would advise to any leader nowadays. To have those characteristics of being able to provide long-term orientation if we are asked for, being able to provide strength and shoulder and enablement if we are asked for, because that
and guidance as well.
Absolutely.
Because I think as the best service, what a leader can do is guide the current or upcoming generation with their success and failures, sharing those, which is the purpose of this podcast, is to say, hey, what are your you mentioned, sorry, we're handing over the keys, but what are your personal biggest failures, Jam? What are the things that you could guide the upcoming really generation, what they should be aware of?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, failures I have endless amount of, and this is the funny part where I say it doesn't matter how often we talk about ours. Our failures remain our stories. They need to have their own failure to learn from it, because it's like the so-called salt on your skin. You need to go into this ocean and feel how the salty water itches your skin. If I tell you how it feels, it's just like my story of that. So when I look back, whether it's selecting the right business partner, interacting with your team members, taking strategic decisions on remaining somewhere or changing job, opposing your superior. On each of those, I can say I failed, I have failure stories, and I learned from those. Having the work-life balance when you are at the top of your energy and you start forgetting that, and you're somewhere in Mexico and you pick up the phone and your life partner tells you, oh, your son just spoke for the first time, and you realize, oh my God, I'm sitting somewhere in Mexico City with Volkswagen and didn't even experience that my son spoke the first word, which is something happening once in a lifetime. And then you don't care at that time, and 10 years later, this will never come back again. So learning to understand that every moment counts, that everything in your life is an experience which is not coming back again, and being grateful for that each moment. These are the learnings, for example, I can talk about out of my own mistakes and failures. And yet I do definitely believe that this needs to be a personalized learning journey for every single person. And therefore, my recommendation, if you say guiding, I wouldn't dare to guide, but if I would support and encourage someone, I would actually encourage them, go and make your own mistakes. Go and experience how it feels on your own skin. It's nice to read other people's stories and have fun listening to that, but do it, no matter how small. Scale doesn't matter at that moment, but dare and try out and do. Do. Don't say, I'll try it one day.
Take action. Right?
Exactly.
And what I love what you just said is, like, everybody has its own journey, and what may have worked for someone or failed for someone may be different to your skin, because every skin may be different, to us. But of course, you can have an idea and listen to people and see what they've done, what they've worked for them, what didn't, which gives you more information. But here's one thing that you need to be aware of. Whenever you need advice from someone, my philosophy is simple. Go out and seek advice from the best in that field, someone that has done it. Don't take advice from everyone that it may not have done that. So that is important. So because that could be female friends and family, they might give you an advice from their point of view of what they know, which will be the best of what they know, but may not be the best advice for you.
That is really important. It's funny you say that. I actually posted something on this very matter yesterday. This is very true, because there are a lot of people who talk because they read something somewhere, they saw something somewhere, but they haven't experienced it themselves. So they can give you an ideal scenario, but it's a purely theoretical ideal scenario, and doesn't include the pitfalls and the individual bits and bytes which matters and counts. So I definitely agree with you. It's super important.
And there, as you say, take action. Don't overthink it sometimes. Yes, take advice from the best when you need to. But I think it's also, there's a philosophy, and I believe very much in it. It's like when you go to your math teacher, and if you've tried an attempt to do it yourself, often things, you might have figured out first half of the equation. The other half is not figured out. But when you go to the math teacher and say, hey, I've tried to do this, this is where I'm up to, the math teacher has much more willingness and interest to help you because you've already halfway. So what someone said to halfway there, someone says, taking an action is 50%. Whether that's true or not, it's certainly a way forward. So take an action, try, and then be prepared to seek advice from the best in the field to whatever you do.
I hear you.
Fantastic. Well, Jam, any final words? It's really grateful to have you today and share really this valuable advice, which will stay for many years to come. We'll separate it.
No, you're too kind. Last words. I would just recommend to any leader to consider this is now the time for conscious leadership. I think it's beside your emotional intelligence, system intelligence, spiritual intelligence. You need to really have your long-term orientation in terms of what we are causing around us, considering our community, our society as our shareholders and stakeholders, as well as those who are directly, a part of our business. So expand your understanding of what is like the list of the components which make you having your stakeholders. Everything around you is one. Try to be the change. Don't do transformations. Be transformer and transformation yourself. And give room to the young ones and upcoming ones to take over. Whoever, as a leader, hasn't right now already a plan of a succession, why not? ? And whoever is 45 and above and hasn't got a reverse mentorship, like if you are 45 and above and you don't have a 25 years old mentoring you, why not? Why don't you have someone 20 years younger than you telling you what's happening out there? So these are the things I would recommend.
Fantastic.
If I can.
Well, absolutely. And thank you for the recommendations. The future, we're very encouraged to go back to our roots, really. And I thoroughly believe in servant leadership. We're here to serve and make a difference, make the world a better place through everything we do, starting with the people to the left of us and the people to the right of us. And there's no limit to how much good you can do. Keep doing that, spreading. I love the idea. Anyone that is really senior, 45 plus, etc., get a reverse mentorship from Generation Z and give space to Generation Z. Even in fact, here with in Dynamics, 50% of our workforce really and partners are Generation Z, and it's fantastic. Especially when you give them freedom and we give them opportunity to do things that often they'll never probably have expected at that stage of their life. It's fantastic. Trust them and support them along the journey. When they fail, pick them back
Absolutely.
up. And when they fail again, pick them back up and just guide them. But and the ones that really because that's a journey. There's so much pressure on them right now to find what to do, but they don't know what to do because they don't know themselves very well. So it's about that, finding that, try a lot of things. They live in the best of times. They just need to try a lot of things and then find the thing they're passionate about and become the best in the world and provide that environment. And that's a great way to help and serve. And of course, that's a purpose-driven career or mission-driven companies.
Absolutely.
through conscious leadership, I think the world is already looking a more caring and a more inspiring place to live in.
Definitely.
Fantastic. Well, Jam, really, thank you so much. Really grateful for your time today.
Sure. Thank you very much.
Thank you for being a leader who cares and keep spreading that goodness. And
awesome.
God
Thank
bless.
you very much.
Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot. Bye for now.